Hello, Ms. Schickel here with your Shape Person Coloring Techniques. So if you're looking to practice some of your coloring techniques, this is going to be a demonstration. I'm going to work with the crayons. You can use most of these techniques that I'm going to demonstrate with your colored pencils and markers. Some techniques are harder to do with markers and colored pencils. So I encourage you to practice and explore what your tools do. So I've started with making a basic shape person, and I've made it with the shapes intentionally so that each shape is going to get a different technique. So I'm going to start with outline and fill in, and I'm just going to work my way through some colors. So for outline and fill in, it's what it sounds like. Most of the time with outline and fill in, you want to use the same color for your outline that you're going to be filling in with, because you're trying to make a solid shape. So I would outline or make thicker the line going around the arm. So I'm just outlining it. By making it thicker, it's going to be easier to stay inside. And my objective here is just to color in and stay within the lines. Fill in. So I'm filling in the space. And I'm trying to make it so that it's as solid of color as I can. I'm trying not to leave any white spaces. There are some techniques we're going to do that will leave white spaces, and that's part of that technique. So there is outline and fill in. Let's write that with not the exact same color, but outline and fill in. Okay? So outline and fill in. A technique that requires a crayon that has the wrapper peeled from it. You don't have to peel the wrapper all the way off unless you want to have a larger space that you're filling in. For the small spaces that I'm doing here, this one's going to work perfect. It's also great that this happens to be a broken crayon because it makes it a little easier. So this is a leftola, by the way, crayons that are broken. And this is rub with the side. Now, one of the fun things about rub with the side of the tool is if I put something underneath, and I'm looking to see, I don't really have, you need something that's kind of hard. Oh, I've got something good here. I knew there was a reason that I needed paint chips, right? So I have these paint chips that I got. I'm going to put this underneath, like that, and rub with the sides. So make sure that I'm holding it flat against there, not like a pencil, right? Rub with the side is going to reveal the texture underneath. It's kind of like magic. So you could do this on the bottom of your shoe has a great texture, or cement, or like the brick wall. Make sure you don't get crayon on the wall, right? Rub with the side. Oh boy. All right. And since we just got there, I'm going to use another, go into this space here, and I'm going to go into this space and I'm going to do stippling. Stippling is just a fun word. Now, stippling is when we fill in a space with little tiny dots. So I'm just using little tiny dots. The closer together I put the dots, the darker. The farther apart, the lighter it looks. Stippling. You want to make sure that you're not like a woodpecker trying to, we don't want to make holes in the paper. Woodpecker beaks are built to make holes in the tree. Your crayon, your colored pencil, your marker are not made to make holes in the paper. They will break, right? So, stipple Okay, so for the next one, we are going to want our 3 primary colors. 3 primary colors. There are only 3. We don't make these colors. We cannot mix anything together to get red, yellow, and blue. That's natural. We mix these colors to get all of the other colors. So I'm going to start with a stripe of red. Okay. A stripe of blue. And another stripe of red. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to the first one and I'm going to use my yellow. Yellow and red, 2 primary colors, are going to mix together, mix and blend. So that's our technique here, is mix and blend. And they will mix and blend to make a kind of orange. Yellow and blue, the 2 primary colors, mix and blend to make green. And then finally, red and blue mix together to make a purple. Now, how purple or how green or how orange these are depend on how much of each color. If I use more red, it's going to be red-orange. If I use more yellow and less red, it's going to be yellow-orange. Okay? So mix and blend. M-I-X. And B-L, because, you know, E-N-D. There we go. All right. So for the next one, you're going to want a dark color. Dark purple, dark blue, dark green, dark brown. You can do the next one with any color, but to be able to see it really well when you're practicing, I would recommend you choose a darker color. So I'm going to do this in black, and I'm going to start by making the crayon whisper on the paper. I am hardly touching the paper with the crayon. And I'm going to move downward from the hip to the knee. And as I move down, I'm going to press a little bit harder and a little bit harder. And finally, I'm going to move my fingers closer to the tip, and my crayon is now going to press so hard it is yelling. Vary the pressure. Vary the pressure. So we get light, medium, and dark. Vary the pressure. We can also call this value. Okay? Something that I like to do in the arm here is hatching. You can do lots of different kinds of hatching. Hatching traditionally is a lot of little lines that are close together. The farther apart the lines get, the lighter it's going to appear. The closer together, the darker it will look. So just like value and varying the pressure, the closer together the lines, the closer together the dots in the stippling, the darker it will look. I can also do cross hatching. And cross hatching is when the lines go in opposite direction. So I have hatching and cross hatching. All right. Down here, I'm going to do little lines and marks. X's make really great texture, little lines. V's, S's. I can also do little lines and marks with just straight lines that go back and forth. They're not parallel, so they're not technically hatching. So, little lines, little marks. Okay? And I'm going to come back to that yellow because I want a light color. And in this hand here, I'm going to color in the hand with the yellow. And I'm going to press fairly hard. And then I'm going to come back over it with a dark color. I am going to use this violet. And I'm going to press as hard as I can to go over top of it. And then I can take the back of the marker and scratch in to create textures and patterns and designs. This is called sgraffito. Sgraffito, to scratch. Okay, sgraffito, to scratch. And I always spell it wrong. S-G-R-A, fancy words, sgraffito, to scratch. And then I'm going to do some what I call spaghetti lines or tangled yarn. So scribble lines that are controlled, right? Scribble lines that are controlled. And again, the closer together and the more layers I do, the darker it will be, right? And if the scribble opens up and there's less marks and there's not as many layers, it's going to look lighter. So it's a controlled scribble. So these are some of our basic coloring techniques. Almost all of these are going to work with your colored pencils and with your markers. Some of them will not work as well. You're going to have to experiment with the markers, especially to do value or vary the pressure. With a marker, the marker doesn't get darker based on how hard you press, but how many layers of color you use. So in the marker, I would do 1 layer of color, 2 layers of color, 3 layers of color. So I'm putting down, I'm going to grab a marker here. So I have 1 layer, right? Layer 1, layer 2, let it dry a little bit, and then layer 3, maybe 4. Okay, so with marker, it's about layers. With the marker, pressing harder is actually going to make your marker just break and may make holes in your paper, okay? So with layering on this in the marker, you want to let it dry and then do your next layer and let it dry. Marker is almost like paint with coloring techniques. Sgraffito with crayon, with marker and colored pencil, sort of depends on the paper that you have, but give it an experiment and see what happens. You may end up with a hole in your paper. You may find a way to make it work. But it's more for these waxy oil pastels and crayons that it's easier to get it to scratch and lift the layer off. So enjoy using these techniques in your artworks. As you're working, think about, what in your artwork would benefit from little tiny marks like this, or what in your artwork would look really great with this texture on it. And what would happen if you did rub with the side of the tool and then did some scribble lines over top? There's all sorts of things you can do to really, really push the details and coloring techniques in your artwork. So have a great time exploring your dry coloring tools and how they work, and I'd love to see what you make.